Hey guys, I wanted to make this video to share with you my thoughts on getting a 4090 graphics card to date and what you really need to consider if you're thinking about getting one yourself. I'll share with you my experience from availability, purchasing, installing and running it, so you can get the facts on what you don't need to worry about and what may be concerning with respect to some of the issues mentioned online, among other issues you may never have heard of or witnessed until you actually have one in hand. That said, let's get to the review. When it comes to availability, some models are still a little tough to get your hands on, such as my original pick, the Nvidia 4090 Founders Edition, being the least expensive and probably best suit for my 850 watt power supply,
the minimum wattage required to run this graphics card.
But after looking into other perks of third-party vendor cards, which are more available these days, still a bit of a hit or miss, but seem to have better restocking, I decided to get the Gigabyte 4090. If you're in the market for a 4090 or any other purchase that has limited stock, I definitely recommend using nowinstock.net. You can take a look at previous restocking times for a particular product and even set up phone and email alerts so you can get notified on when stock comes in. Definitely a great tool. I managed to get my Gigabyte 4090 from Newegg for $2,500 Canadian. With GST and shipping, it totaled
around $2,700 Canadian, being quite pricey.
I'm letting you know the cost because I came back to the site shortly after, 3 or so weeks later, and found that the price had dropped $250. But it wasn't in stock, so when I contacted customer service, they told me they couldn't price match. However, after just mentioning that the 30-day hassle-free return policy hadn't passed and the price was an adjustment on their part from their own store, they offered me a $100 gift card, so I took it. So don't be afraid to argue with logic. You'll usually get what you ask for, or at least something worthy of 10 minutes of your time. The install went quite smooth. Keep in mind, this graphics card is a behemoth, so you'll need to actually be sure it fits into your machine.
The Gigabyte 4090, being 340 millimeters long,
required me to remove my top hard drive tray in order to fit it in, thus limiting the amount of drives I can add into my machine. However, I already have plenty, so this wasn't a big deal for me.
One thing to note is that the Founders Edition 4090 is 304 millimeters in length.
When it comes to perks, in the instance of Gigabyte, their 4090 has an additional mount that uses the placement of a few screws on your motherboard chassis, which means it's very compatible with multiple, if not all, setups and ensures your card gets the support it needs. This is by far the best option for securing a 4090 to date, hands down. Gigabyte also has a good instructional video for setting up this mount, which I'll link to in the description. Also, when it came time to connecting the dreaded power adapter for my non-ATX 3.0 power supply, surprisingly, there weren't any issues. I think if you're cautious, and even if you aren't, it seems like, at least on the Gigabyte end, they have really improved the adapter cable, as I've had no issues with melting to date 3 weeks or so in, and I've been gaming on high settings, streaming, etc., really pushing it. So as long as you follow instructions to safely bend the adapter cable far away from the actual GPU connection and err on the side of caution during install, not bending it unnecessarily side to side like it's a toy, you won't have any issues. It's worth the note as well that you want to make sure that you give the connector a solid push into the GPU. I don't recall necessarily hearing a click during install, but I gave it a good amount of force and knew it wasn't going anywhere. Although if you do hear a click, you should definitely be good. Another thing that slipped my mind during the install was that the GPU board connection has a little plastic cover, so be sure to remove that before attempting to plug it into your motherboard. Otherwise, some potential defects with your new card may be the least of your worries. I was able to stress test my card with no issues. Everything runs smooth, minimal fan noise, etc. I've tested Apex Legends, Valorant, and many performance-based applications, and everything is solid. One thing that has come up that is strange is that the card does not recognize my monitors unless they're on during boot. Specifically, one monitor is recognized, loads the Windows logo, then the others will display. It's a 3-monitor setup. I tried different monitors on and off, etc., but it seems the card chooses a single primary monitor and then recognizes all displays after the fact. This is kind of odd, and I'm hoping it will be fixed with a firmware update, and to be honest, shouldn't be an issue with such a massively expensive card, but it's something I can live with for now. Also, a good thing to note is that Nvidia offers 3 years RMA warranty on top of this. Gigabyte adds an extra year, so you get 4 years total in case something goes wrong, which is reassuring. As of today, I'm quite happy with my card and its performance. I spent nearly 2 months trying to decide which one was right for me and find the best price I could, along with learning as much as I could about the melting adapter issue. At this point, I think vendors have taken the necessary steps to mitigate any issues by providing better adapters and, in Gigabyte's case, longer warranty. Would I buy a 4090 again, having already had it in my system? That's a loaded question because it does what it promises. I can play games at high-end graphics and stream them at the same time, which is more than enough for most people. along with the speeds and enhancements for editing, creating content, etc. However, I didn't need those gains, and I think that running my previous 1070 at lower graphics was fine for the most part. What I'm saying is that you really have to evaluate why you want one of these cards, whether it's for a specific reason or you're just an enthusiast and this is the thing you splurge on. I think if I were to focus more on price to performance ratio, I might consider the AMD 7900 XTX in place of the 4090, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. I hope you guys got something out of the video. If you're still here, you're awesome, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.